Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm Bruce Waller, your host, where I'm talking to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in the community. What are these leaders, what do they do to get started? And what are they doing to stay there? What are they doing to stay relevant, stay sharp as a leader? And so today I'm talking to a very special guest, my good friend, David Windley. David is the CEO for IQTalent Partners. He's also serves on many boards, one in particular, the Society of Human Resource Management, where he serves as chair for the 2019-2020 year. And that, of course, that's a organization that serves really over 300,000 HR professionals across the globe. So just really excited you're on with me today, David. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
I think last time I talked to you, of course, I got to see you at SHRM National last year in Vegas. And then we got to speak for a few minutes at the Volunteer Leader Business Meeting in December. And it seems like so long ago since COVID, right?
Yeah, no, yes, these last few months, I guess now, seem like a whole lifetime ago.
Right. So I wanted to just really dive in. I know we talked a little bit back in DC about IQTalent Partners and talking about, this on-demand search that your company provides. I was wanting to see if you could just really just kind of start where, tell the story about David Windley. Where did you grow up? How did you kind of get through the roads of being a former executive for companies like Yahoo and Microsoft, I think Intuit, and then to where you are now? I would love to hear that story.
Sure. So, when I went to school, college, I wanted to be a business leader. I majored in business management. I got an MBA, but was always interested in the people aspect of running a business, and mainly because I felt it was the most important, and still do feel it's the most important part of managing a successful organization. So yes, you have to understand your finances. Yes, you need to understand marketing. But to me, the secret sauce was always, how do you get people to, perform in teams and an organization? So me as just a management leader, that was always the most intriguing part. And so, I started, I wasn't necessarily intending to be in HR specifically, just a business leader. But right out of college, I went through a management rotational program with a company called Bechtel, big construction engineering company. And they rotated me through different aspects of management, and my rotation through HR really stuck with me again, because it was the application of what I thought was important in management. I went on to work for an insurance company, got into compensation, and then really fell into Silicon Valley life with a company called Activision, a video gaming company. Back in the late 80s when I joined, it was much smaller. And that was kind of my entry to tech, and I've been in tech ever since. So as you mentioned, I worked for Silicon Graphics, Intuit, Microsoft, Yahoo, etc. And through that career, all of us, now the way getting into IQTalent Partners, in the tech world, talent is key, right? And hiring the right people for your company is critical. It's a core competency of any good company. So it's not something you would outsource, right, in tech. It's very strategic. So we've all built in-house recruiting teams, strong in-house recruiting teams. And that's the model I'm used to, right? Not, using an RPO, et cetera. So when I retired from corporate, I was on advisory board, and one was this company, IQTalent Partners. They were doing regular recruiting. But I had this idea of, like, for smaller companies, and I saw it a lot, smaller tech companies that just did not have the scale yet to have a legitimate in-house recruiting team, They may have only need to hire like 10, 20 people a year, right? And so they were stuck using the traditional recruiting industry, which is very expensive and also very transactional, right? And so the idea came, well, why can't we give these smaller companies what Google, Microsoft, Apple, all the big guys have, right? A great in-house team that's efficient and effective. And so that's the idea behind IQTalent Partners, right? To build basically the equivalent of a really good in-house recruiting team, but now we rent out our services on demand to smaller, growing, mid-sized companies. Now, it ends up we also help big companies too, because even with your own big recruiting organization, sometimes there's a surge in demand. And anytime you have a disconnect between the supply of resources and your demand, we can come in and augment. So that's basically what IQTalent Partners does. So.
No, that's fantastic. I'm curious that as you're going along this path as an executive, and I know you're fascinated with the business aspect. Was there like this one time that you knew like this is what I want to do? I found my lane. I found my purpose. I found my calling as a business leader. Was there a moment like that you just knew it?
I don't know. I think I always, if you asked me when I was young, going to college, I said I wanted to be a CEO. I wanted to run a company. I wanted to, I am doing that now, but, the path to helping run companies was through HR for me.
Mm-hmm.
But that was always my goal. So I don't think there was ever a, moment in time. For whatever reason, I just always, felt like, I wanted to help run companies. So, as far as kind of being a leader, I was always that person. I was an athlete when I was younger. I was not necessarily the best one on the team, but I was typically the team captain, so I was always that kind of person to help the group do whatever it takes to win, facilitate that. So that's just kind of my nature. So I don't know. It just always was in me to kind of be a leader.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, I remember when I was the student council president in seventh grade, not even realizing what leadership was back then. It's just something that kind of came natural. I'm wondering, it really, you've heard the term, it takes a village, right? A lot of people to help you get to certain places. I was just wondering if you could just share, do you have any like mentors, or was there anybody in particular that was really helpful for you to get to like where you are today?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Mentorship. Now, mentorship is very important. In the corporate world, I would say equally or maybe sometimes more important is sponsorship. Finding someone that sponsors you now, especially in larger company settings, right? Because you can get lost in that environment. And so from a mentorship point of view, I never really latched onto one individual. It was more tried to grab from many people, right? Many people I would respect. And sometimes you'd respect them from one aspect of their leadership or their business acumen. And so instead of one or two mentors, I really tried to grab from a lot of people that I respected. But I did have, some good sponsors in my career, especially when I was at Silicon Graphics early in my career, sort of moving up the ranks and, moving around and being sent off to Europe for an assignment, being sent off to Asia. I had a really good sponsor that sort of believed in me and opened the doors. So I would tell people as they're thinking about their career, mentorship is great, but also try and find those sponsors. And what's the difference between a sponsor and a mentor? The sponsor has the ability to actually help you with opportunities, right? Because given their position or influence can open doors for you. Right? A mentor is good to give you advice and help you and coach you, but a sponsor is oftentimes a mentor, but has that additional aspect that they really can open doors for you.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I hadn't really thought about it from that angle. I was just curious. So a lot of people will say, hey, if you want a mentor, just go ask someone. Is it the same for a sponsor, or is that sponsor going to come to you and say, listen, I see something really special in you. I want to help you get to where you need to go?
Yeah, you can't necessarily just ask someone to be your sponsor, right? I mean, to some extent, you earn it, they see it. But oftentimes a way to do that is through the mentoring, right? So finding a good mentor, and like I said, oftentimes a mentor in the right position can turn into a sponsor.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I talk about that a lot, especially like in our local SHRM chapter here, being a past president for Dallas HR and serving the Texas SHRM. I'm always talking about the importance of mentoring and having some type of mentorship program. But I love what you're saying, because this can go above and beyond that with the sponsorship. That's perfect. So now I've read you've served on many boards, but one board in particular is SHRM, which is Society of Human Resource Management. Of course, you're currently the chair, and I was just wondering if you could just kind of share the story, like how did you become part of the board, and then become the chair, and then kind of what is that board responsible for?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Probably like a lot of HR professionals, I was involved in SHRM in my college days. In fact, I was a chapter president for, was it ASPA at the time? What was it called? Association for something before they changed the name.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then right afterwards, in Northern California, I was in the local chapter. But as my career progressed, I sort of, I just wasn't as active, and especially as I was a CHRO and so forth. But, it was a search firm. They were looking for board members and contacted me. I was at Yahoo at the time. And, I was getting to the quote end of my career in corporate, right? And I knew I had my retirement plan. And I really responded because I did want to sort of give back to the community. And more so than just giving back, to help our function and community. Because I really do believe, and I joined, 7 years ago on the SHRM board, that we're an important point for our profession, where the world is waking up to the fact that talent and organization capability is critical to a company's success. The question is, how much are the CEOs and other business leaders looking to HR to help, right? So it's both an opportunity and a potential threat for us right now, right? If HR does not step up and the CEOs and others don't see the HR professionals as their key person to help them with these critical issues, then others may come into our field, right? And so I really wanted to help elevate the profession. I really believe in HR. I believe in the great people that work in HR, and this is a great opportunity for us to step up. I really think HR in the next generation here should be the most important business function for an organization, because people and talent are the critical ingredient to success for a company, right? And so that's kind of the mission I was on, to join the SHRM board. It's been great over the last 6 years. And you can see now, that's part of our mission, is to elevate the profession of HR. And, adding Johnny C. Taylor to the president and CEO over the last couple of years, you really see, this mission and vision being played out. SHRM is getting more involved in the conversations of public policy, in shaping, right, policies around the workplace, really elevating the profession so that CEOs really understand that HR is that function that can help them with this critical issue. So I think, that's why I joined, and we're on that journey right now.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've seen it. You know, I mean, you were on the front line. I mean, with the addition of Johnny C. Taylor Jr. as the president and CEO, you can just like see this spotlight on the profession. It's been, I mean, inspiring is one word I'll use, but just to nice to see that all of a sudden now the importance of the HR professional. Now, I think you said it earlier too, that, you know, you're first a business leader that is serving the HR function. And
Yep.
I think that's one thing that he's also brought, that is like, we're business leaders that are serving that HR function. And so I love everything. Lots of commercials. You know, we're seeing the commercials that I know that. So the board is part of that, right? So is the board there to make sure that, you know, we're looking at all the different strategies along the way?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the board's role is first and foremost to represent the members, right? So on a corporate board, you represent the shareholders, right? You're voted in by the shareholders. And for us as a membership organization, we're voted in by the members. So we represent the members first and foremost. And typically your job on the board is one, just having a fiduciary responsibility, right? To make sure things are done in the right way. And then you're there also to advise management, right? We don't run the organization. Johnny and his management team run the organization. But the board is definitely most involved in strategic direction, right? And ultimately we would approve the strategy. And then operations day to day is management, right? And then, like I said, there's some fiduciary responsibility to make sure that things are being done the correct way. And that's really the job of the board.
Well, you're doing a terrific job. Now, how long have you been on the board? Did you say 7 years?
Yes, 2013 I started.
And
Yeah.
do you term out, or what
I
happens?
will, after my term as chair, I have 1 year as past chair, and then I term out. Yes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Then you're like, what do I do now, right? So I'm you know, obviously, you know, life in the leadership lane, I like to pull out, like, what do you see common threads in leaders? And one of the things, you are surrounded by some incredibly talented people on the board. I mean, I personally know Steve Brown. I've seen some other folks that are part of that board, incredibly talented. I was just curious, just if you could just maybe share like some of the common threads, like when you see that board, that makeup, what is that common thread, and what are you trying to accomplish, like putting, you know, all these pieces together?
Yeah, so for the board specifically, I think what we're looking for is, you know, people that are passionate about the mission of SHRM, people that, you know, we try and get people from various perspectives, right? Various backgrounds, life experiences, professional experiences, so that they bring different perspectives to the board. But we also want people that contribute across the board, right? So it's not just in their subject matter. So if you're a CMO that's on our board because of the marketing expertise, we want that person to participate as just a general good business person, and that's someone that has passion about HR. But hopefully they're about marketing, right? That will help us. So that's what we look for. And then the other thing is, people that are confident, that will contribute, but that are also humble, right? It's that combination of someone that has confidence and that, you know, will state their opinions, but is humble to know that, you know, other opinions might be right, right? And they're part of a team. So it's that kind of tension, right? Confident but humble is kind of a good characteristic, I think, for a high performing team.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I appreciate that very much. And I know that, you know, well, serving as a board member, it's probably not always easy, is it? I mean, you have some challenges along the way. You get to celebrate successes, but it's all about being a team, right? and moving forward in the same direction. So I'm wanting to ask you, you leadership is every day. I mean, it's every day. I mean, you've always wanted to become a CEO. But I know that, just from my experience and talking to other leaders, every day is tough, right? And I'm just wondering if you could share what life is like in the life of David Windley. Like, what are some common practices that you've put in place during your career that's helped you like just stay on track from the time you get up till the time the day is over? I was just curious if you could share some of that along the way.
Yeah, it's the day in the life now is a bit different than when, maybe I was CHRO at Yahoo. It's more of a portfolio now. As you said, I'm on, 3 boards. I run this company, and then I also kind of advise, some startups and things like that. So it's a very varied day, right? You look at the calendar. But I would say a discipline, regardless if it's now or when I was an executive, is, your day can get very busy. And I think the best executives, it's always about choices, right? Prioritization, what you end up focusing on, what you prioritize to do, right? Because you're going to have more than a day's worth of work every day. You always are as an executive. And so the trick is knowing what to focus on, what to say no to. You can't do everything. And getting the things that are important done, but also the things that are important that are long-term that, you typically never get to, the strategic things, because you're always just dealing with the immediate. And I think a good discipline that I've always tried to have is to force myself to make sure when I'm looking at my calendar, so to speak, my day, that there is time allotted. And you force yourself, just like you would a meeting, to give yourself that time to do those longer term strategic, but not urgent things. Because if you don't, you never get to them, right? And so that's just a little trick for me, what I would do, right? Is to really kind of force myself with my calendar, block off time, just like an important meeting, so that doesn't get filled up. And so that's something I've used as a technique throughout my career.
That's fantastic. I mean, I hear, everybody has kind of a different way, right? You have to find what works best for you. I was talking to a lady earlier today, and she was talking about how she blocks off Friday for thinking and strategy. But she said this, she said, it doesn't always work out the way you want it to work out, but at least I know it's there.
Yes, and then you move it around just like another meeting, and exactly. So it's exactly the same thing for me. So whether it's Friday afternoon, however it works for you and your lifestyle, but the point is to make sure you separate that time, because otherwise, the day-to-day will consume you, and you just don't get to it.
Right. No, we can all relate to that. And so I'm curious. So for planning, so that's a big part of your practice. Is it like, hey, I start on Sundays and I look at the week? How does that work from the week to the day? How does that work in your world?
Yeah, I probably just like most people's calendar, right? You got your calendar through the week. I'm typically someone that I'll get stuff done over the weekend. But for me, it's probably Saturday morning, catch up. Then I could spend most of my weekend, and then, Sunday evening, right, get ready again for the week, send some things out, right, so that when I come in on Monday, things are starting to happen. So that's kind of my rhythm. But I do try and make sure I take that break. Likewise, during the day, when I come home from work, whether it's my office and I step out and I'm coming home, dinner time and, the early evening time is for families with my wife, right? So you block things off. And then, I get back to it, later in the evening before I go to bed for maybe a couple hours to catch up on things. But I always make sure there's time that, hey, when I come home, it's time with the family.
That's fantastic. I remember when I was a young manager, I was playing golf with an HR executive, and I remember him talking about how much he played golf. Like he was talking about all these different really cool, amazing places that he has visited and played golf. And I just asked him, I was like, you're a busy guy. How do you have time to do all of that? And he said, I schedule it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that day it hit me. It's like, you know what? He schedules what's important to him. He puts that and then schedules everything around that. That sounds like that's what you do as well. It's like,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And then again, it goes back to then prioritization, right? So whatever time you have that you're dedicating to work, then the trick is, what are you doing during that time? Right. And so that's the trick, is prioritizing on the most leveraged items. Right. And the further you get up as an executive, the more, quite frankly, it's almost easier, to be honest, to be the CHRO at Yahoo than it is to be that director, level at Microsoft, because you've got a team, you've got an organization, and done correctly, right? You're managing through other leaders at that point, and your job is mainly, right, setting the conditions, hiring the right people. It's all about talent, right? Mm-hmm. And when if you hire the right people, you have the right culture you've built, and you do a good job of aligning objectives and then just having a mechanism to operate and monitor that. Quite frankly, it's almost easier to be the CHRO than it is to be the director level, is where you're from top and from here. That is like the busiest and probably the hardest working level in a company, is that mid-management level. So yeah,
That's interesting. You share that, because so if I'm a director right now, that's kind of reassuring, knowing that if I can like push through this, if I'm wanting to do something more, if I can push through this right here, it might even get a little bit easier, as long as I make sure I'm surrounded by great people, right?
Exactly. Assuming, right, that you've hired the right people, you've got a great culture, but that's your job, right? The higher you get up, that your job is more about organization effectiveness, not individual effectiveness, right?
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Great advice. I'm just wondering, anybody ever share any advice with you that's kind of helped you along the way?
Oh yeah, there's plenty. I think one that stuck with me early in my career is, early in my career, you're an individual contributor. You've got your sort of section that you're responsible for. But I remember a senior executive telling me that, hey, always approach even your job with the lens of the CEO, right? Which basically means a lens of the company. Right. So, whatever you are, say you're a comp analyst, right? Early in my career as a comp analyst. Okay. What's the right decision given the CEO's perspective? Not just what's the right thing for my department. Right. And so, with that perspective, then you come down and say, this is the right decision. Right. Because if it got escalated, that's what the CEO is going to be thinking about. They're considering all the variables. Right. And competing variables, and this would be the right decision. So at least in a business setting, I think that was good advice.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Think and act like an owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So for you, like someone listening today and they're an upcoming HR professional, any advice that you would, you've shared a lot today, but any advice that you would share with them?
I'd share with that we just shared as far as perspective. Always keep that company perspective as you're thinking about yours. Career-wise, the advice I would give is, don't be so focused on moving up. Be focused on building capability. Okay. You know, I was lucky enough to rotate and get a broad experience. And to some extent, you know, early in my career, I had a lot of lateral movement. But that lateral movement built the foundation. So when I was starting to go up the chain to the CHRO, it was like, oh gosh, this guy's got international experience. He's got corporate experience. He's got this, right? And you're actually better suited for the top job. It may feel like you're not moving up as fast by building your capabilities, but if you're in it for the long game, right? If you really want to be a C-level executive, you know, get that experience early on in your career. It's harder to make those lateral moves the further you get up, right? They're not, you know, you're at the VP level. They're not going to say, well, let's go over to engineering and learn about it or marketing. You know, at that point, it's tough to move over. Early in your career, you can get that broader experience. So I would say, you know, take advantage of that.
I love that. That's great advice. I actually had the opportunity to mentor a couple of college students the last couple of years through the Dallas HR organization. And one of the students actually was sharing with me that she wanted to be in this particular area. It might have been employee relations, but the only spot for an internship. But the only spot at the time they had was in recruiting, and they wanted her to be part of that. And she asked me, should I do that? I'm like, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
A great opportunity to get some experience in the recruiting side.
Yes.
So that's what you're saying, building out,
Yes.
to get opportunities, go after it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Man, this has been like amazing. I appreciate you sharing just your wisdom and perspective. And so the last 5 or 10 minutes, I just wanted to kind of have some fun. I call this, it's time to accelerate. And I just wanted to ask you a few questions as we kind of wrap up here. So first one is, how about a book or a podcast? What do you prefer?
Yeah, book. I'm going to go old school. You're talking about something to read now or what my favorite book is?
Just what are you reading now?
Well, I'm getting ready to start a new book, actually. It's the one by SHRM, Talent Wins. So this is the next book for me. Yeah. But sort of my all-time business book, since I sort of grew up in tech, it's an old one in the 90s, Clayton Christensen, The Innovator's Dilemma, which was a very interesting book about, you know, why, you know, new companies always come in and topple the old ecosystem. But it was also from an HR perspective, you know, a lot of lessons learned about how do you create a successful new company. But yeah, that if someone wants to go way back in the time machine, the concepts still apply. You could take out the examples he had in the 90s and apply it to the modern day Airbnb, Ubers, and et cetera. But it is a great book.
Hey, I'm curious. You know, I hear you know, big people's success are driven by the books people read and the people they meet. How much do you read?
You know, I read more. I stay up on current events a lot more. I read maybe now probably 4 books a year, and it's all, you know, non-fiction. I'm not, you know, I don't read for like fiction, you know, like that. So it'll be a book like this. It'll be something to learn. Is kind of what I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. How about you got any hobbies other than work? No, when you're stay at home.
Travel, and which I can't do right now. Travel, enjoy a good meal, you know, family, friends, sports, you know, when I can do it, either playing them or watching them. Yeah. So just time to relax.
Is there a particular place you like to travel in general, or just?
Yeah, give me a beachfront, you know, condo or room, and where I could just listen to the waves crashing in. Yeah, that's the ideal vacation spot.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. Final question. I want to ask you this. And so there's I like to listen to music, and Mercy Me had this song called Dear Younger Me. And so I was listening to that, and it made me think about, 10 years from now. So 10 years older David, what does he say to David today? Is he thanking him for something? Is he giving, what's he sharing with him?
Wow, 10 years. That should be like retirement. So hopefully older David is going to be thanking younger David for allowing him to be on that beachfront condo, enjoying the waves, relaxing with a nice glass of wine. That's what older David would want this David to do.
That's fantastic. Look, man, listen, it's been an honor. Appreciate you coming on today. You're definitely like in the leadership lane. And I personally, I want to thank you for all you've done with SHRM, helping us just continue to move the HR profession, and just for being on with me today. So I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. Appreciate your podcast. Good job.
All right. See you, man.
All right. Take care.